First of all, we have to discuss faith and knowledge and the similarities and differences between them. Faith and knowledge, a lot of people think that they're totally different, but they're actually inseparable. And it's easy to understand why. To believe in something, we have to know what it is. In other words, if your belief is a function, then you need to know what the argument of the function is. You know what you're believing in before you can actually believe in it. And if we're rational, we have to believe in that which we know. It's pointless to have knowledge and not believe in it. It would be irrational to do that, and we pride ourselves on being rational creatures. So the two are linked. By the same token, the attribution of existence requires knowledge of that which exists, and knowledge of something implies that it does in fact exist. We can't say that we know something if it doesn't exist, because there's nothing to know. If only as a concept. I mean, it doesn't have to exist as something substantive. It can be an idea. Thus, like faith and knowledge, ontology and epistemology are linked by duality. Ontology is, of course, about being, and epistemology is about knowledge, and they're linked by a duality principle. Now, most people claim to believe in the Bible, but belief entails knowledge. And amazingly enough, the Bible is short on knowledge. You might not think that's the case, but it is. We have standards for knowledge. It comes either from seeing something directly or from logical inference, including logico-mathematical derivation or proof. That's how we get knowledge. But neither of these things is what the Bible actually furnishes. Instead, the Bible inspires us to leap to our own interpretations in its sayings and to have faith in those. Unfortunately, there's a downside there. Because interpretations unavoidably differ from person to person, faith has split into many interpretations and many conflicting doctrines and dogmas, which looks bad because it looks like, well, really, it doesn't look like anybody has faith in the same thing, so how can you even say that it exists? It kind of goes back to our previous questions. Now, to improve on this, we need a standard interpretative framework. This requires that it be logical in nature, because that's the ground state of cognition. That's what logic is. It's the rules of cognition. That's how Aristotle more or less defined it now. It follows from that there's no such thing as a literal reading of any text. People say, well, I interpret this literally. Well, that's an oxymoron. It's a reading devoid of interpretation, all right? And that means looking at a string of indecipherable symbols. Okay, if you don't interpret the symbols, then you've got a literal reading of something. You're just looking at the bare symbols without even assigning meaning to them of any kind, not even the most basic logical level of meaning. When we think we're interpreting something literally, we're really just overlooking the interpretative elements that we're applying automatically, like learned associations and connotations that enable us to make sense of it. Interpretation is a necessary stage of communication. It's an essential linguistic operation. It's the first stage. It's basically what we have to do to make sense out of anything that we see or hear. Now, what's needed is a new and higher level of logic. Ordinary logic, schoolboy logic, isn't going to do it. One needs a level of logic in which spiritual and metaphysical content can be fully expressed in terms of God and reality as a whole. And logically, this is a tall order. If you get into mathematical logic, you see that to refer to things as a whole, this requires a kind of a quantum jump, a leap, up to a higher level of discourse. And there is, in fact, a theory that does this. I developed this theory. It's called the CTMU. So there is a way of proving or knowing about God.